So, why do some small businesses thrive while so many struggle to just simply survive and just kind of put along? Well, to answer that question, right, why do so many small businesses simply survive is let's look at the ultimate survivor here. So we've got the caveman. So let's think about what the caveman's day consisted of. So the caveman's day was he'd wake up in the morning, he would go out, find the herd, sneak up on them, and go kind of find which one's going to be the weakest and beat him with a club, drag him back to the cave, and be fat and happy for a night. But then the next day, hopefully, the herd was in the same place. And if it wasn't, he went hungry. And I kind of liken this to some of these peaks and valleys in revenue that so many businesses see in the ever-changing climate today. And we're going to go through why that happens. So before we go through why that happens with most sales and marketing funnels, let's first establish what was the most innovative invention or creation for the caveman.
So we naturally, when Jimmy starts running this analogy by me, I'm all clearly it's controlling fire, which I still hold as true. But
wrong.
No,
wrong. In this case, it was not fire. That's what most people say. It's the fence. And so the fence allowed the caveman to evolve from hunter-gatherer or survivor to rancher-farmer. It allowed him to start being able to project and forecast what crops were needed. He started to understand the life cycle of plants and animals to be able to do that.
Now, I may be jumping ahead a little bit here on this, but once Jimmy started rolling with that analogy, scientifically, I don't know if it holds up, but marketing-wise, one of the most simple things that I do as I'm helping a business scale and grow theirs is I start drawing lines on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here's a marketing channel. Here's a sales channel. Where does one start and one stop? It's amazing the clarity you get by drawing lines, putting fences around specific efforts. Here's where my sheep live, right? Now I've got them captive. I don't have to be beholden to following the herd. Here's where I plant my corn.
Yeah.
Right? I know that if I plant it today, that 5 months, 4 months, whatever it is, it's going to grow into something that I can utilize. But it takes a lot of effort to think that far in advance. Right?
Absolutely. And so what are the specific problems that leads right into, with survival style marketing? Well, it keeps you always chasing that next deal or that next whatever. It keeps you, your marketing becomes disjointed, and you start with this spray and pray mentality of whether we're talking about posting on social media, if we're talking about your email system or whatever, it's the spray and pray. And ultimately, you start to lack the confidence that your marketing efforts are going to deliver the surplus of revenue and clients or leads or whatever that effort is going towards that you need it to. And so many will stop trying.
And on this point, and this is one of the inspirations that got us going on this webinar was specifically, and I'm going to show you some examples of, let's say, large list-sized clients of ours that they run into email deliverability issues. They run into reach issues, meaning, let's say Infusionsoft is no longer delivering at the same level it used to. So the temptation is to say, email's dead, I'm going to move on to something else. No, it takes discipline in that spray and pray. How that shows up in the marketing world from my vantage point on the systems side is if you're sending out broadcasts and relying on deals today that you're just coming up with, discount the widgets by 15% and send an email, you're probably not seeing in the long term the results.
Yeah,
you're certainly not seeing predictability.
No,
right?
Definitely not.
And so I always call it, instead of spray and pray, I call it the crack cocaine in the marketing world. You're going to get an immediate hit, but 3 years down the road, you're going to realize nobody wants to hang out with you anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Because you're always itching for that next
burn everything out.
Yeah.
And so let's look at the typical sales and marketing funnel, because I'm here to tell you that the typical sales and marketing funnel has you set up for those peaks and valleys, and to keep you in that survivor mode of marketing. So let's look at the stages. So it typically starts with generating interest, and interest can come organically. It can come with paid, right? Paid can be a dangerous thing as well.
Yep.
Because it can be the drug that you never can get off of. But starts with generating interest. You sell the hot leads, right? You get a few new clients and you sigh in relief. But then what happens? Well, then you start over. You start over with what oftentimes is the most expensive and least predictable part of your sales and marketing funnel. And again, this is why it goes up and down. And the reason is because there's some major holes in this funnel. These holes exist in lost interest. So people who maybe see you somewhere on social media, on your website, whatever, and lost interest or lost traffic, you could say, and then getting into lost leads. So people who you get, but then they don't convert, and then additionally, it's not being able to optimize that lifetime customer value through upsells, cross-sells, things like that. And so these holes exist in just about every business, and any business owner would tell you that the greatest cost to any business is opportunity cost and missed opportunity in general. So today we're going to uncover some of where that hidden opportunity is, where it lies, and then how to execute on how to really execute on that and capitalize on it. So if we put some numbers behind the funnel here, let's kind of look at it. So you get in front of, fill in the blank, a certain number of people, and let's say then you get 100 leads. And just to make the math easy, we're going to say then you get 10 clients. Well, then when you start over again, then you're then chasing new ones. You're chasing the herd again. And my question here initially on a conversion standpoint is, what in the world happened to the other 90 people who were interested in what you have? Well, at the end of the day, they end up slipping through the cracks. They're not followed up with. They end up going maybe with a competitor, because what? It's all about timing. And here's the harsh reality, is that people buy when they're ready to buy, not necessarily when you're ready to sell. And so ultimately those other 90 just get thrown in the trash.
And what happens, again, we're jumping back and forth here around Jimmy's content presentation and then the reality in the ground with the systems and software that I implement for my clients. Those 90 leads that we forget about because we're busy chasing the 10 hot ones, when you do revisit those, like you've paid money to have those leads, and now you're like, oh, all right, I got to fire this back up again. I got to fire the engine back up. And you go out to reach out to them again. Chances are your system provider, Campaign, Infusionsoft, MailChimp, whoever they are, suddenly they penalize you for not communicating consistently. This penalization is going to look like getting your list throttled, decreased deliverability. Heaven forbid they even shut your account down, because these peaks and valleys are ending up to do more damage to them than you're worth to them.
Well, and ultimately, it's the same thing when you talk about posting on social, right? If you're a ghost as far as from a social media standpoint, you're never offering value. Well, and then your posts are not going to be engaged with, which means then when you post in the future, you're going to be seen less. These are all essentially they're different search engines, more or less, and their algorithm is configured based on what's happening there. So how do you capitalize on that opportunity so that you can get more out of everything? Well, you automate and systematize your follow-up. So from what Clint's talking about, from a system standpoint, you automate that process. From a posting and things, you have a schedule set up to be able to consistently stay in front of people and deliver clear and direct information. So you offer value is the start there. You always offer value. You educate your leads and your prospects. You nurture those into valuable customers, ultimately make the sale, and that's a rinse and repeat process.
And a lot of things, as you're talking about this, you say, hey, you put yourself on a schedule. One of the things that I know I like about being an entrepreneur is not having people tell me what to do. turns out I'm kind of resistant to that, right?
Kind of a nonconformist in a lot of ways,
which,
from what I know of you.
which serves us in some levels, but then also messes with us on others. And so part of the pushback that I get with people when we're automating, not just people, business owners specifically, is, in not so many words, they want to feel free to fly by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want, and there's validity there, right? You want, if an idea hits, you want the freedom to chase the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like me, you know that when you come back from chasing the idea, you realize the baseline is neglected.
Yeah.
And so real freedom in this process comes from establishing this baseline that Jimmy and I are going to be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That, knowing that stuff is on lock, is the thing that gives you the freedom to create and go chase the new ideas.
You're absolutely right. And let's talk a little bit about systems and everything, and your business. So I want you to think about your business. Think about your customer. And we're going to use another analogy here. So think about your business as if it's a strawberry field. And every strawberry out in that field represents a person, a lead, a customer, former customer, someone who's associated with your business. And when you go out to harvest your strawberries, or go out to harvest, you come back with something that looks a little bit like this. And this kind of gross picture here is a representation. Anyone who's ever grown strawberries knows that if they sit out there too long, right, they look like this, and you've probably got some green ones in the back. And so if you go out to harvest them all at once, then this is ultimately what you're going to get. So my question for you from a conversion standpoint is, what are you converting? Are you closing 5% of your leads into clients? Are you closing 10%? How many people realistically have no idea because you don't have the right systems in place to be able to measure that? And that's a lot of businesses. So if you're only closing 5 or 10%, then what you're really saying is that your garden is producing this right here. You have this huge segment of terrible fruit and this little sliver of good fruit.
It drives me crazy when I work with a company that runs a sales team. Like you have people that you're paying a sizable commission to close leads.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as there's a bad month, the number one thing they say to you, the owner, you know what I'm going to say. The leads are garbage.
Yeah, the leads suck.
Leads suck. If you just got me good leads, then we'd get more. It's a cop-out. Those of us that come from a background in sales know it's a cop-out. You missed the opportunity because you didn't take the time to identify the real concern.
Right.
The leads aren't garbage. You're just not hitting them at the right point, or you're not saying the right thing.
Well, and so let's look at that, because I don't think that it's necessarily this little sliver of good fruit. I think it looks something more like this, where you have some that are ready, that are already ready. Right? These are the ones that you're already closing, right? And then you have others that could be ready. They've got the making of a good client or a good customer. They've got the characteristics of your ideal customer. And then you have others that definitely could be, but they're going to need some more time on the vine. And then you're going to have some that are just bad. There are bad leads out there. Anyone who tells you that they'll only get you good leads is selling leads from somewhere. That's the only
and they're garbage.
Thing. And
I guarantee you they're hot garbage. But and again, looking at this image here, we all know when we speak honestly with each other that that's a fair representation of the type of database we have. Okay. One of the things that prevents us as owners from scaling our sales conversation is a couple of things. Number one, I don't know that I can trust sales guy to have the same conversations I do. I can quickly get in and I can identify where they're at in the cycle. How do I scale that? Two, how do I know that these leads that I'm paying, let's assume that they are there in the middle of the spectrum. They're not quite ready. How do I trust that I have a method to follow up with them after the no-close conversation?